Hello everyone, my name is Nex, and today I'm going to show you a forced update melon and pumpkin farm that uses simulation distance. So it is sort of like zerotick, but not exactly zerotick. It's very much the same idea, but it works a little differently. Because what we basically do is that we update the melon or the pumpkin stems outside of the simulation distance, which means that they won't actually break when we move the blocks under them. But when we load those blocks back in, of course, the actual farmland under the stems won't be moving anymore, and that in turn gives off a growing update to those, which makes some pumpkins grow. And as you can see right here, they grow. Then we push up the floor to break the pumpkins, and we have stand pushers that push these pumpkins out into the front into a collection system. Now, I am not actually here. I am using a debug camera mode that can be activated on the Windows 10 edition. It is a little complicated, so you need to go into files and edit a lot of stuff, and I will probably be putting out a guide on how to do this. So as you can see, my character is actually AFKing over here and loading and unloading those chunks. So this right here is actually the border of the simulation distance, and this is great to demonstrate these Simtick farms. So that is what we call this sort of zerotick method using simulation distance. We call it Simtick because it is quite a lot different from zerotick in a way that it doesn't really have the same zero attribute that is being added to the term zerotick, because it doesn't really happen in the same tick, because it just happens outside of the simulation distance. But yeah, this is still producing a lot more than a pumpkin farm normally would, and as you can see, we are using very little stems as well. So if we go back into here, this is how this works. You basically sit in this minecart right here, and as you can see, there is a chunk border right on here, and we unload and load those chunks in order to make sure that we properly unload the stems so that we can update them. And once the minecart goes back to front, it loads the chunks. We are able to break the pumpkins and load them and break them, and then we unload again. It's pretty simple. The only downside is that you can't do anything else while you are in here, but that is a downside to all Simtick farms, and yeah. Now, all credit due, this mechanic called Simtick was originally discovered by 77 Tires. So yeah, that's very cool, and that is also pretty much the only method to force update melons, as far as I know so far. A thing to note about this though is that when you farm melons, there will be an issue, because melons of course drop as slices and not as the full melon blocks. And that of course is an issue, because of course the collection system will completely be overloaded. It will not be able to keep up due to the sheer amount of drops. Now this farm produces about 13,000 pumpkins per hour if you have pumpkins planted all over here. And if you do plant melons all over here in all these farmland blocks, it will produce about 60,000 melon stems per hour, which ends up being about 7,000 melon blocks per hour. But again, as I said, the collection system won't keep up with melons only, so that's why I am only going to demonstrate how to build this with pumpkins, but of course you can also use melons. But when using melons, you cannot be fully AFK, because it will definitely overload the system. Alright, so now that we got all the base mechanics laid out and you understand how this farm works, we can get to building this. Now, the first thing that you are going to want to do is go into my Discord server, the link is in the description, and get yourself a chunk border visualizer pack. Now, this pack will be in the channel called MC Resources, and if you already have such a chunk border visualizer pack, of course you don't have to join and get it there. You can use whatever chunk visualizer pack you want, but a download link to that is available in my Discord server. And of course, it's also a nice place to stay. So yeah, don't just join or leave, because we have a lot of fun in there. Alright, so with your chunk border pack loaded back in, that you got from wherever, the one you got from my Discord server should look like this. So there is blue and red lines, and those indicate the chunk borders, and yeah. And do keep in mind that this chunk border is absolutely necessary to properly build this farm. Now, if you are not able to install a chunk border pack onto your game, for example, if you are on Xbox, Switch, or PlayStation, you can head over to chunkbase.com, and from there you can also determine chunk borders given that you have coordinates enabled in your world. Now, of course, that is also linked in my Discord server next to where you can get this chunk border pack. Now, those are the materials that you are going to need for this farm. Now, these two types of blocks can be any type of solid blocks. You may need more or less than I do because I'm in creative mode and literally don't use any app. These 4 items are just filler items for the Etho hopper clock. And these pumpkin seeds don't have to be all pumpkin seeds. There can be some melon seeds. They can all be melon seeds. It both works for pumpkins and melons. Alright, now that you took a look at the materials list and screenshotted it or whatever, we can get into building. Now you are going to want to go out by 2 from one of these corners. It can really be any corner, but it just has to look like this. It has to be an intersection of the red and blue lines. And just go out by 2. Then go out by 3. Place one more block, break that, and you're going to want to go out by 7 from here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now just go out by 5 right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On the other side as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And also right here. And it should look like this. And make sure that this line is crossing right here. And again, it doesn't matter if it's a red or a blue line. Now look at this shape from the other side just like that, and place 1 temporary block right here. Place 1 piston on top, you can break that. Place 3 more pistons and 1 obsidian, and then have some torches facing like this. More torches like this, and some salt blocks on there. Now repeat the same right here on the outside, break that. 3 more pistons, obsidian, torch, 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 more torches and solid blocks. And then do it on the inside here. So break the solid block, more pistons, obsidian, torches, torches on that side, and solid blocks on that side. And it should look just like this to you. Now look at this thing from the other side again, and you're going to want to go by 3 blocks, and on the 4th block just place 1 solid block right here, place a torch, place another torch, and now you can place your redstone dust. Now just make it like this, and then take some sticky pistons and place them right on top, facing up, of course. Now we're going to want to have them face up because this is where there's going to be the dirt on which the pumpkins or the melons grow, and these are going to be broken by the pistons that push up. And then just make sure to place some dirt on top of all the sticky pistons, of course, and do that on all 3 of those. Now place some more dirt on the sides like this. So make sure that every one of those is 4 times 4. It should look just like this. And place slime blocks in the intersections. Now these can technically also be honey blocks, but I just use slime blocks because they are more commonly used. And then just make sure to have sticky pistons facing towards the slime blocks on every one of those, just like that. It is fairly simple, and what you're going to want to do is just make sure that these actual sticky pistons are completely encased, because we're going to waterlog them so that we can till the farmland. So just grab your water bucket and right click or tap or whatever you do to place blocks right on top of the sticky pistons, and there's actually going to be water inside of them, and that makes sure that we can properly till the farmland. Now just take any type of hoe and just till the farmland, and as you can see, it's going to be wetted by the waterlogged sticky pistons. And then what you can do is place your seeds on top of the actual farmland. Now technically you don't have to bone meal them, because when you actually start the farm, it's going to grow these stems fast anyway. But I'm going to do it nonetheless, because of course these stems, when grown, look much nicer. Alright, so got all of that placed. Now what you're going to want to do is knock out those 2 blocks on every one of those dirt pathways, or whatever you want to call them. And just place some salt blocks like that, put 5 on each. Now the reason we don't have them wrapping around is because we're going to place hoppers. And this is where the hopper minecarts are going to have their drops get sucked out. The hopper minecarts of course are there to minimize loss. And place some chests just like this, right here, and right here. And have hoppers facing into them. And do that for every chest, 2 hoppers just facing into them. Fairly simple, just like that. And then go to the back side and have blocks facing up just like this. And what we're going to do is place some levers on the back side of them. Now those are there for us to power the powered rails, because otherwise they would not launch the minecarts back. Place some rails right on the front here, some normal rails of course, and then just fill the rest in with powered rails. So just like that. Do that on every single one of those. So that should look like this. And once you got that done, you can already place in your hopper minecarts. So 1 hopper minecart for each side. Just put them like this. And yeah, they should be collecting all the lost pumpkins that are on the farmland just fine. And the rest, well, the majority should just be pushed forward by what we're going to build now. Now, do keep in mind that these hopper minecarts are crossing chunk borders all the time, since this is the mechanic that the fast growth of the pumpkins rely on. This means that they may from time to time disappear, because the game really hates chunk borders and hopper minecarts, or just any type of minecart or mob, and they may just get randomly deleted. So just make sure to be aware of that. You may need to replace them. And I doubt it will happen frequently, but it can happen, so be aware. So before we do any of that, we're just going to place 4 pistons just like this on every one of those dirt blocks. Well, not on them, but next to them. And you're going to want to place stairs. Now, before you do anything else, you are going to want to put blocks like this. And we're going to place some normal pistons on top. Now you are going to want to place 1 temporary block right here and place 5 sand in there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, of course, you have to have a piston under there. This is why the sand stacks up and doesn't break. You have to have a piston under there. So please don't go to me in the comments and say that it doesn't work. If it doesn't work for you, you either forgot the piston or you are not on Bedrock edition. Either way, you got that. So just power this piston once, remove that, break the slab, and you may notice that it's floating, and replace it with a stair. And repeat this process for all of those. So remember, you need pistons under there, and you put 5 sand in each of those. Alright, so once you got all of those in place, put solid blocks in between of those pistons and just put redstone dust on top like that. Now you're going to want to go to the underside and place a repeater on 2 ticks on top of the obsidian. Now pull this out just a little, just like that, and you can already go up by 1 block like that. Put some redstone dust, go up by 1 block, and then switch to glass. So 1, 2. And there we go. As you can see, it will connect up properly, and this will make sure that whenever this gets pushed up, these sand pushers will also get activated. And if you don't know how these sand pushers will work, basically they act as some sort of force fields to entities and players. As you can see, I would get pushed back several blocks, and this will also happen to the drops of this farm, and they will get pushed into the hoppers. Now just place some solid blocks just like that on top, and you are going to want to pull out some glass right here. So just pull it out like this. And what you're going to want to do is place glass panes just right there. And this makes sure that the pumpkin doesn't go too far, so that it just lands properly in those hoppers where it should land. And of course extend those little glass lines just like that, so that they completely enclose everything, and it should just look just like this. Next up, take some solid blocks and make sure to just connect all of those, and we're going to do that so that we can properly trigger all of those sticky pistons and update the melon stems once these chunks are unloaded. Now what you're going to want to do is extend this out by a few blocks and have a repeater on 4 ticks going into that. Place one observer just like this and one sticky piston, of course pushing the observer. Have one torch on the side of that piston, one block, another block, and another block. Another repeater once again on 4 ticks. Remove that dust really quickly so that you don't break anything. Put a sticky piston right there and have a observer facing into this solid block, and this will trigger the actual melon stem pistons once these chunks are unloaded to update them. Place that dust back, and yeah. Now before you go any further, make sure to go into world settings and make sure that your simulation distance is on 4 chunks. This is very important. If your simulation distance is not on 4 chunks, it will not work. Now, if you are the owner of the world or if this is single player, just turn it down to 4 chunks and it will work. Of course, you can change it back whenever you're not using the farm or whatever. And if you are on a multiplayer realm, chances are that it's 4 chunks. In fact, on realms, it will always be 4 chunks. Now, in order to visualize what we're going to do next, I put down some numbers in blocks, and that is just so you understand how we are going to build this. So as you can see, this is the chunk we're going to call 0. This is the one where most of the action is going to happen with the etho hopper clock, and this is basically the base chunk. And what simulation distance 4 means is that it will go out 4 chunks from this center chunk right here and load those chunks. So yeah, as you can see, this will be the 4th chunk, and whenever the minecart pushes us forward, this will also be loaded. So what we're going to want to do is just pull this line back to chunk 0. So as you can see, we can just count this with chunk borders. So this is the first chunk border we encounter. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it will be right up against there. Now I can remove those numbers. I kept a 0 just because. So as you can see, that is 0. This will be 1, 2, 3, and 4. And of course this farm is in the 5th chunk. Now what you're going to want to do is place a repeater right before each chunk border. And this is pretty much perfect because signal strength goes up to 15 and a chunk is 16 blocks long, and of course we have the repeaters. Now place in that redstone dust between these repeaters, and of course you don't miss any spots like I just did and did again. And yeah, it will connect up just fine, just like this. Now, just to be safe, because we're going to mess with some of the stuff, we're just going to break this so that we don't accidentally break these stems when we shouldn't. Now, what you're going to want to do is break that last piece of redstone dust and also the salt block, replace it with a slab, and there we go. Now, place a temporary block right here, have a hopper facing into there, and another hopper facing into the other hopper, and this is going to be our etho hopper clock. Now, if you have never heard of an etho hopper clock, what are you doing? But anyways, just put one redstone dust right here, one normal piston, another normal piston, and another redstone dust. Place your block of redstone on top and your 4 filler items in there. And as you can see, it will properly load and unload the chunks once we have our piston set up with the minecart. Now, in order to toggle this, we're just going to place one normal dust on top of that piston, and then just a normal block, and place a lever on top and flick that, and that is going to be just fine. Now place one block right here, a repeater on 4 ticks, go up by 1 block, place one redstone dust, another block, and then just put something like this. We're going to place our piston facing this way on top, take a normal rail, and make sure that the rail is facing this way, that way it won't go out where it shouldn't, and oops, didn't mean to break that. Now what you're going to want to do is place your normal minecart on top of there, and this is where you're going to sit in. And this should be almost complete minus one step, but just to test this, we can just turn this on. And as you can see, it will properly make everything work. So as you can see, we might already have some pumpkins in there because they might have naturally grown. So I can demonstrate this. We're just going to get ourselves some pumpkins. And as you can see, if I put it right there, not there, right there, it will get broken and pushed forward by those sand pushers. And if they don't get pushed forward, they will be collected by the hopper minecarts and put in there. Now go back right here and turn this lever off. And what you're going to want to do is just place a single piece of redstone dust back on top of here. And there we go, we are complete with our Simtick / zerotick melon and pumpkin farm. Alright, so let's give this a shot. We can sit down in this minecart right here. Now do make sure that this is right on the chunk border. This should be completely on the chunk border. The minecart should be right before that line. And whenever we sit down, it should work. So if we go into my debug camera mode that I described before, as you can see, it should start growing the pumpkins. Yes, it does. And then it breaks them and pushes them forward. Now again, as I said, my character's back there. You probably don't have the same debug camera that I do, because it is quite complicated to actually activate. And again, as I said, I will probably make a tutorial on how to activate that as well. Although be warned, it only works on Windows 10, is not very easy and potentially dangerous. But yeah, as I said, if it works properly for you, and you can even see that from here, you didn't need my fancy debug camera mode, you can basically just turn down the FOV and have some sort of budget optifine zoom. And as you can see, whenever you go forward, you should see pumpkins, the dirt go up, and then get pushed forward. Now the collection is all the way over there, but you probably won't need to use this for long, because 13,000 pumpkins per hour is pretty good. So a few last instructions. To turn this off, you of course are going to flick this lever, wait till your minecart is back, and wait for a few seconds. Okay, so we should be safe now. And of course, while you are using this farm, you absolutely have to sit inside of the minecart, otherwise all these pumpkin stems will break and it will be quite a pain. But yeah, this is the entire thing complete, and it is pretty cool. So I personally think this is very cool, because this is pretty much the only way to force update melons and pumpkins in the game. And while of course it is not as easy and quite a bit of shenanigans with all the chunk border stuff, I think it is quite useful overall, and that you will find it useful too if you do decide to spend the time building this. Now if you are in a multiplayer realm, you need to of course make sure that there are little to no, or better, no players nearby that could potentially load the chunk while this farm is running and break it. Because this farm completely relies on player chunk loading and unloading. So if the player gets nearby and starts loading the chunk, he might break it, which will of course not be fun, because he will have to replant all of these stems. Now, I would like to thank you very much for watching, because I think this is a very cool farm to build, and I hope that you do enjoy building this if you do decide to build it, even though it is quite a bit of hassle. But yeah, I hope you get a ton of use out of this, because I put a ton of work into this as well. And all credits due, like I said, Mechanic Simtick by 77 Tigers. So, yeah, just like I said, thank you very much for watching. Of course, make sure to subscribe, because I keep interesting tutorials like this one coming out regularly, and you definitely don't want to miss that, because yeah, there's some pretty groundbreaking stuff. But with that being said, I hope you very much enjoyed watching this video. My name is Nex, and bye bye.